Okay. That is okay.
Hello, a very good morning, one and all. On behalf of Chebrolu Hanumaiah Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences, I cordially welcome you all to the second webinar being organized by our institution. The webinar, which is based on plagiarism and the best practices for implementation to stop plagiarism, is being hosted by Chebrolu Hanumaiah Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences along with the aegis of Indian Pharmaceutical Association. Indian Pharmaceutical Association, as we know, has been conducting a number of programs during this lockdown period to enhance the quality of pharma fraternity all throughout this country. And on behalf of that, this webinar is also being under the aegis of Indian Pharmaceutical Association, and we thank the president of IPA, Professor T.V. Narayana Garu, for being the host and the man behind all the organizations being done during this lockdown period. So this webinar is being hosted by CHIPS and IPA, and we thank Dr. Vasudev Rao Garu, faculty of School of Pharmacy, International Medical University, Malaysia, for accepting our invitation and taking the lead in this webinar. As we spoke about our speaker, it is the apt time and the most appropriate time to talk about another stalwart in the field of pharmaceutical education. That is Dr. Y. Rajendra Prasad Garu. As far as the subject pharmaceutical chemistry is concerned, majority of the institutions and majority of the people would look forward at one man, that is Dr. Y. Rajendra Prasad Garu. He is the professor. He is currently working as professor at University College of Pharmacy, Andhra University, Vizag, and there is no doubt to say that among many arsenals that he has created and gifted to the society or the Society of Pharmacy, Dr. Vasudev Rao is one of them, and we are very happy to take his name on this occasion. Now, without any delay, I would like to start this webinar on plagiarism. Now, plagiarism is a very interesting thing. For all the people, for all the young researchers out there, plagiarism is one concept that they should always look out for. In order to have a very good research, you should have strong citations. And at the same time, you should make sure that you are not having excessive plagiarism. So in order to distinguish this fine line, we have the most eminent speaker with us today who can clarify all those doubts, make the concept of plagiarism very clear to all of us. So without any delay, I request Dr. V. Venkatrao Garu to please introduce the guest. I hand over the platform to Dr. Venkatrao.
Thank you, Kalyan. Good morning to you all. A very warm welcome to all the participants on behalf of Chebrolu Hanumaiah Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences, Guntur. Now I would like to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Vasudev Rao Aupati, E-Learning Lead, Department of Pharmaceutical Chemistry, School of Pharmacy, International Medical University, Malaysia. Dr. Vasu did his B.Pharm from Maharaja College of Pharmacy, Vizianagaram, and PG and PhD from University College of Pharmaceutical Sciences, Andhra University, under the esteemed guidance of Professor Y. Rajendra Prasad. And he was the first person to receive CSIR Senior Research Fellowship Award from Government of India for completing his PhD. And I was very glad to work with him under the same supervisor. Dr. Vasu received E-Learning Achievement Award from International Medical University. Currently, he is acting as a principal investigator for the prestigious FRGS grant 2019 awarded by the Ministry of Education, Malaysia. Dr. Vasu won gold medal for his E-Learning Innovation Project showcase titled Virtual Innovations via Simulations, Training and Assessment. He is the expert in the field of design, synthesis of various bioactive hybrid molecules, computational drug discovery with focus on hit-to-lead optimization associated with the development of novel bioactive ligands to fit against various multifactorial diseases. With this brief introduction, now I invite Dr. Vasu for delivering the session on today's topic. I wish all the participants will gain good knowledge on this topic and implement them in their practice. Now I hand over the platform to you, Vasu. Please continue the session. Vasu, please continue the session.
Is everything loud and clear, Dr. Venkat?
Yeah, clear.
Can you see me?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all organizing committee members, Chebrolu, Hanumaiah Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences and Indian Pharmaceutical Association for warm welcome and greetings. Firstly, I would like to thank International Medical University for granting me the approval to participate in this gracious event and share some knowledge about this plagiarism and concepts and theories of best practices. Well, in the next few minutes, I'm going to talk about some plagiarism, basic concepts and best implementation theories. I'm going, without further delay, I'm going to share my slides to you all. So, well, the topic of discussion today is stop plagiarism, best practices for implementation. And my name is Dr. Vasu from International Medical University, Kuala Lumpur. So let me explain to you what are the intended learning outcomes of today's section, stop plagiarism. The intended learning outcomes were designed in such a manner the participants will be able to understand and have the knowledge on the concepts of the plagiarism. And upon completion of this section, at the end of the section, the participants will be able to have the best practices and avoid plagiarism in academic setting. This is the overview of the presentation in which I'm going to discuss in the next few minutes, which forms parts of what is plagiarism, incidents of plagiarism, factors influencing and how to avoid plagiarism, various forms of plagiarism, academic spectrum, case studies and knowledge check, what is the best way for implementation, summary, acknowledgements followed by references. So first of all, what is plagiarism? Just if we look into the definition, what is the plagiarism? Plagiarism is nothing but an unethical practice. It's an unethical practice. By definition, if you see, to steal and pass off and to use and to commit literary theft. So these all are unethical practices. So plagiarism is one of the unethical practice. That means it's like literacy theft. As per the standard definition, if you look into the standard definition by Committee on Publication Ethics, as defined, plagiarism ranges from unreferenced use of others' published and unpublished ideas, including research grant applications to submission under new authorship of complete paper, sometimes in a different language as well. It may occur at any stage of planning, research, writing, or publication. It applies to print and electronic versions. So this is the standardized definition, and there are also several forms of explanations and defined elsewhere about plagiarism. All meaning is the one is literacy theft. So if you carefully look into the plagiarism, how it will generally takes place, what is the incidence rate, how the plagiarism is actually takes place in a general academic setting. It generally takes place in two types of scenarios possible. It may not be always intentional. It may also be unintentional. So let us see what are the two scenarios possible. The incidence of plagiarism may possible with two different scenarios. One is intentional. So, well, we are talking about intentional. It's very difficult to handle this kind of scenario because this is all about the intention of doing things. What I mean to say is we cannot avoid this kind of things. Why? Because the person who is really intended to do such activity. So let us see what comes under the intentional plagiarism. Cut, copy, paste from the internet is the major problem. Okay, buying or borrowing from external resources or consultancy services without giving credit to original author, presenting author's work as your own work. So these are some of the items which may consider to be as intentional plagiarism. When it comes to unintentional, lack of knowledge or understanding, lack of confidence in one's writing abilities, failing in proofreading, sloppy note-taking practices. So these are all some of the unintentional plagiarism. Don't worry, we can avoid unintentional plagiarism well, because unintentional plagiarism happens due to lack of awareness. Once upon getting complete information about the plagiarism and their concepts and best practices for implementation, those who are practicing in real-time academic setting definitely can do well and without doing any sort of plagiarism. Moving on to the next, some global scenario of plagiarism. As you all know very well about the elsewhere, you all are academic setting up, academic professionals, scholars, students, and various categories of people I could see from the diverse range of groups today participants. So types of unethical cases reported at Elsewhere. As you know, Elsewhere is one of the largest publishing group of books, scholarly journals, research articles, and so on. If you look into some of the unethical cases reported, these are some of the unethical cases. I just don't want to read out the list. If you carefully look into the one, plagiarism, that occupies around 42% of the total reported cases, which is literally very, very high. So this is where we are having, this is the situation. This is only just a scenario presented to you all with respect to only the Elsewhere group. Just think about the other groups across the world and continent and subcontinents. So what I want to highlight here is all about plagiarism is actually spreading like coronavirus. There is no possible control. So let's see what actually leads to plagiarism. Why plagiarism is gaining such a good quantum and momentum to spread across the continents and subcontinents, irrespective of the developed or undeveloped countries, because ITU, termed as International Telecommunication Union, statistics states that this is the slope. As you all can see the slope very clearly. What's the usage statistics across the years, starting from 2005 to 2019? The usage of internet is drastically enhanced like anything. Almost 53.6% of the global population, that's equal to 4.1 billion people, are using internet. So internet resources, which is an development of ICT. What is ICT? Factors influencing plagiarism. So if you carefully look into the factors influencing plagiarism, I could say that these are the main practices that actually the stepping stones of the plagiarism. I hope you all can recognize these three icons, as you all may be much aware of doing this kind of things unknowingly. I believe that. So factors influencing plagiarism, if you take into consideration, cut, copy, and paste are three logical operators in the computer system, are actually driving us towards the plagiarism. So these factors influencing, if you look into the following journals I cited along with the picked here, the factors influencing favor. This study also highlighted that copy and paste are the main reasons of getting more plagiarized in otherly journals or manuscripts or student reports or whatever the possible submissions in the academic setting. So these are the three factors influencing plagiarism. So impact of ICT, just now I mentioned ICT. What's the ICT? Information and Communications Technology. So the development of informations and communication technology, unfortunately, there are several flaws and several cons are there rather than getting more utilization of the pros. So what I mean to say is all about, if you carefully look at the cases, duplication, plagiarism, error, and fraud. Over the years, since 1977 to 2011, the statistics presented over here. And due to the enhanced usage of internet and due to the availability of the resources on the internet, the students are make use of these factors influencing, and later ultimately the drastic changes in the practice of the scholarly nature has actually yielded different types of plagiarism practices. If you can see, of course, fraud and suspected fraud is also one of the sub branch of the plagiarism. Error could be a falsification of the data, also a plagiarism. So a direct plagiarism of cut, copy, and paste itself also occupied the yellow zone. So if you look at the graph carefully, the statistics until 2001, no such reports actually. It does not mean that there is no single report, but there were several reports reported, and there are several reports reported, but most of them, they were not under the statistical consideration because some are actually not measured. So what I want to say is impact of information and communication technology has limited the way of self-directed learning, the way of self-directed thinking, critical thinking, problem solving, and analysis. Such type of skills actually being reduced due to the practices like fraud, plagiarism, and allied practices. Okay, now, so what's next? So what's next? So we discussed some problems until so far. So what's next? How to avoid plagiarism could be the better option to discuss. In the next few minutes, I'm going to introduce to you all what are the various forms of plagiarism, first of all. Because without having prior knowledge, as we know, just we discussed in the under unintentional plagiarism. In the unintentional plagiarism, most of them, they are not aware of doing things. So these are the lack of awareness on the practices and principles of the plagiarism actually leading them on driving them towards making plagiarism issues. So how to avoid plagiarism? I will introduce to you all just a few forms of plagiarism top rated by Turnitin Group by conducting a survey across the globe. Around 900 to 1,000 educators actually involved in this one. Later on, they actually classified into 10 top domains, which are responsible as different forms of plagiarism. So let's see what are the 10 different forms of plagiarism. So avoiding plagiarism is also one of the most important strategy to be part of our scholarly life. Why? Because we may need to practice plagiarism to maintain our primary objective. I will introduce our primary objective in a short while. So understand what constitutes plagiarism first. What constitutes plagiarism? Learn what does not constitute plagiarism. Know the rules and consequences. There are several consequences. Learn theories and best practices of anti-plagiarism. So by doing all these, you may avoid plagiarism, but still some chances of doing plagiarism might be there. However, gradually you may improve doing things better. It's not a overnight process, it's a practice. Keep it in practice first in order to experience a fruitful result. So what is our primary objective? The primary objective is all about to maintain our academic integrity. To keep and maintain academic integrity is the primary objective of the anti-plagiarism policy. And the best practices of implementing plagiarism, anti-plagiarism. Before that, you might need to know what are the various forms of plagiarism. And just I mentioned the Turnitin actually done a wonderful job to categorize all the plagiarism, the domains into top 10 domains. I can show to you in the next slide. So these are the top domains which comes under plagiarism. The first starting with clone, Control C, and I'm going to talk about individual domain in the next few minutes. I will show one representative example of how it actually reflects. Starting with the first one, clone. Starting with the first one, clone. What a clone? Simply, in a simpler words, the definition states that submitting another's work, word for word, as one's own. So this is just a clone, almost similar to the major parent resource you extracted. If you carefully look into the example provided here, it's 100% original. The other one is 100% plagiarized. See, dear participants, try to realize what happened. You have taken 100% work done by someone else and claiming as it's your one. So this is a very, very big problem. And if you carefully look at the incidence rates, this is the frequency of incidence. The frequency out of 10, the marks awarded is around 9.5. So this occupies the first place of the plagiarism. This occupies the first place out of all the frequencies. So you can see that 9.5 clone is the first place, and followed by the frequencies also associated with different types of forms we will be discussing in the next few minutes. Okay, next one is Control C. Contains significant portions of text from single source without alteration. So without alteration, what does it mean? Why should we alter? Since the text developed is not by yourself. This is someone else's property. So you may need to change, like rephrasing, summarizing in your own words without changing the meaning of the actual paragraph and by giving some proper citation. So this is one of the next parameter I have to discuss on the Control C. Next, find, replace. This is also one of the strategic form. So it's very easy to do. Instead of changing just the compounds and different types of apparatus all associated with the experiments, simply just replace the different equipment or different things. And the intentional plagiarism can happen in many ways. Rather, unintentional plagiarism can be avoided, as I mentioned earlier. But intentional plagiarism still continues, whether irrespective of whether giving training or anti-plagiarism policies mentioned or whatever it may be. So find and replace. So changing keywords and phrases, but retaining the essential content. You just look into the here, they just mentioned the title changed, but the content is almost same. So this is how the original content and plagiarism content actually varies from one to one. So remix. Remix, what does it mean? What's the remix? You can see paraphrases from multiple sources made to fit together. Why remix can be a plagiarism? Can be one of the form of plagiarism. Why? If you just take into consideration, the remix is nothing but tailoring different works developed by different authors. So this is a tailor-made approach. It's a remix. It's nothing but the combination of earlier forms, what we discussed. Recycle, it's much more dangerous. Recycling is much more dangerous. That means repeatedly publishing the same work. Repeatedly publishing the same work. That means if you consider this one, so borrow generously from readers' previous work without citation. That means if you see some information actually directly borrowing from the actual parent resource, the original resource, and quoting as it is in their own paragraph and pretended to be showing as this, as if they are developed this complete paragraph. So this is completely a different perspective of the form of plagiarism, the recycling process. Coming to the next one, hybrid. This somewhat, it's look like, because since I'm a hybrid guy, so you may be thinking that, no, I'm a hybrid drug discovery and development. Well, it's a very successful strategy, but unfortunately, I am very disappointed to see this word in this plagiarism forms. It's one of the successful strategies. So many drugs have been entered into market based on this strategy. But in plagiarism, this strategy is also booming in another perspective. That's very funny to see this. Okay, combines perfectly cited sources with copied passage without citation. So combining different sources, it's all about the plagiarism, the different sources into a single paragraph. Well, if you consider this one, this hybridization in chemistry aspect, just since I am chemist, I would like to highlight one point here. Hybrid means combination of two chemical moieties into a single molecule. That is it's a very good approach of developing new semi-synthetic derivatives, natural products and all. And unfortunately, um, the authors or scholars and plagiarizers, I can say that plagiarizers got motivated with these concepts and they have successfully implemented into plagiarism. That's the very embarrassing thing. So hybrid, if you consider this one, the hybridization of different tests developed by different authors, and they actually merge together to form a new paragraph and pretend it to be, it's a completely new one. So mesh up. So mesh up mixes copied material from multiple sources. This mesh up, just now what we discussed, the hybrid and the recycle, all these are actually combined approaches, slightly different from one another. If you carefully observe these represented examples, you can understand that mixes copied materials from multiple sources. So multiple sources meaning to say that there are several sources which are open sources, which in open sources you can access to the articles, the full length articles. Since you have access to the full length articles, there are a lot of chances to misuse the data. And this chance will be much better utilized by the plagiarizer to develop a new text based on the free data available in the open sources. And open sources, the main objective of providing open sources is entirely different. It's to expand the knowledge, the domain of practice, the domain of research. But unfortunately, the perspective of plagiarism is actually developing because of open source materials available in the internet. So Moving on to the next one, 404 error. What is, I think most of you, most of the times come across with this kind of error, 404 error. This is actually a technical way of doing plagiarism. So technical, what does it mean? Technical way of doing plagiarism. So this is what a strategy applied by a plagiarizer. So in order to protect himself or herself, that he already been cited and documented everything, but in an inappropriate manner. Meaning to say that that particular citation or the documentation could not be recognized by any particular tool. So once it cannot be recognized, automatically it may show some syntax error. This is one of the syntax error, the 404, since the variables what we submitted might not be having good similarity or close resemblance with the items present in the database. So this kind of error might come. So the intention of the plagiarizer might have this error may protect him or herself from the plagiarism actions. The committee, the academic misconduct might happen. So this academic misconduct might take against the authors, plagiarizers. Because why I keep saying the plagiarizer? Because the plagiarizer may be a research scholar, a plagiarizer may be an academic student, a plagiarizer may be academic staff. So many group of people actually involved in this process of plagiarism and practice. So I just say, without any discrimination on the group, I just say plagiarizer. So this is what one of the action. Next one is aggregator. Oh, this is a new strategy, includes proper citations to stories, but paper contains almost no original content. So what does it mean? So if you carefully look into this one, there is no original content, although if you, because the matter of giving citation is not actually avoid plagiarism. It's just acknowledging you that you have extracted some information from this particular source. But what steps you have taken to avoid plagiarism, that actually matters. So if you consider looking into what are the various steps taken to prevent or avoid plagiarism, so nothing has taken in this case. So that is the reason why it's just aggregation of different works reported earlier, and together we make a developed a new manuscript or new document or like work indicating the other extracted informations from the other researchers reports. This is something like aggregation. It's also a technical job where the data mining in big data analytics will do, but they do with good intention, and this is the aggregation for the plagiarism. Last but not least, moving on to the last one, retweet. Retweet includes proper citation but relies too closely on the text's original wording or structure. So dear participants, if you look into this one, includes proper citation. That means the plagiarizer manages to do proper citation. Well, we have to appreciate that, but almost the wording, the structure of the manuscript or the document is almost same with that earlier reported. So this is just like rewording, retweet, verbatim. This is also termed as verbatim. So this is a word for word may happen. So this is also one sort of form of plagiarism. So next, moving on, these are various 10 different forms of plagiarisms I have introduced to you all. Now I expect some basic understanding from your side. Are you all with me? Okay. Okay. Now I introduced 10 different forms. Now I would like to know from you all whether you understood the concepts and could you able to recognize what is plagiarism component and what is non-plagiarism component. I have to going to determine that. In the next few slides, there will be some knowledge check questions. Okay, please work on it. This is the knowledge check case 1. Please identify the covered portions. Okay, this is one scenario presented to you, whether the scenario is acceptable or unacceptable form of plagiarism. That means whether this is acceptable, unplagiarized or unacceptable plagiarized. Just please work on this. Try to identify. Carefully look into the passage and 3 indications the attention bars were shown here. And this contains feedback. I'm going to discuss about it later. Carefully notice the paragraph. What are the things present in this paragraph? Then you can say that whether this paragraph can be acceptable, saying that no plagiarism happened, unacceptable plagiarism happened. Okay, do you all have your own answers? Okay, cross check with your answer. I will be revealing the answer now. So this is the answer. No plagiarism happened. This is the acceptable passage. Why? If you look at the feedback, the first one, the source is quotation marks within the text. The source in the quotation marks means whatever the verbatim is actually from the major resource, the parent resource, the mother journal article. Same exactly the quoted the same without altering any text, but they have successfully kept within the quotation marks. So it's a legal way of doing. So next, if you come to the next point, the source has been referenced in the bibliography. So the source has already been referenced and the reference citation has successfully been given in the paragraph. The citation has also, so all the requirements actually meeting. So this paragraph can be acceptable and we can say that it will not breach the policy of academic integrity. Okay. Moving on, the knowledge case study 2. Dear participants, try to analyze the same. Here you have provided only 2 attention bars, whether it is acceptable or unacceptable. I think most of you all doing well on this and expected to receive some good response. Okay, this is the unacceptable way of presentation since it has been plagiarized. In what way it has been plagiarized? Look into this one. The candidate has paraphrased the source but not cited within the text. So he managed to paraphrase and summarize. That's well and good. I have to appreciate that. But there is no citation given. Although the source is listed in bibliography, the source has not been cited clearly. Means where it's goes to. What form of this one? It's like mashed up the form of the plagiarism what we discussed just now and identify how and where it has been used. Okay. Moving on to the case 3. So once again, I provided another case for you all to brainstorm and work on it and come up with your answer. So there are 3 attention bars here. You can fill up. Some argue that only practical. Okay, there are 3 attention bars here, whether this is acceptable or not acceptable. So I'm disclosing the answer now. So this is the answer for the plagiarism, the case study 3. The citation has been given in brackets in the text. So this is a citation has different types of citations. Actually, it forms a major part of the plagiarism. Citation is very, very broad area that we need to discuss in another workshop. This is where we are actually talking about mostly on plagiarism policies and forms and the best anti-plagiarism policy. So the citation, the source has been referenced in the bibliography, and the candidate has paraphrased the source. So it is already meeting to the expected standards of anti-plagiarism. So this particular paragraph can be considered as acceptable and non-plagiarized. So with this, I would like to take your attention towards the next phase. So the forms of plagiarism, so far we discussed. I think you all are familiar, and you may do some practice on this kind of scenarios. Lots of resources actually available in the internet. Make best use of those resources and do some practice. Okay, moving on. So let us see what are the challenges in an academic setting. I may need to tell one story. I may need to tell one story to you all. Okay. So, dear participants, if you see, there were very good friends. They both were very good friends, best friends, but they were from different institutions. Although they are studying, they were studying the similar course. They shared the knowledge, they shared the assignments, they shared lot of materials. At last, successfully submitted to the fulfillment of the course, and grades were awarded. Upon looking at the grades, one was very happy, the other one was very sad. Why? One successfully completed the course, the other one unfortunately could not successfully complete the course. So just carefully think about it. What's happened? What actually happened in this case? This is a very good story, so that it will project the global practice of plagiarism and anti-plagiarism. The global practice, the complete global practice, all academic institutions in an academic setting can be clearly picturized in this small story. So one got A plus, the other one F minus, which is a failure grade. Okay, moving on, you can understand what are the various reasons for happening this one. This is the story, the initiator, the trigger of our next few discussion points. So is there any effective solution to prevent plagiarism? Is there any effective solution to prevent plagiarism? If you carefully look into the preventive measures of plagiarism, one of the best parameter that would be considered for detecting the plagiarism is similarity index. This is actually the standard similarity index followed in a commercial software, the Turnitin. So based on the similarity, because any kind of policy, academic policy, that means we may need to have clear guidelines in order to measure the effectiveness. So what is the possible effectiveness of this guideline? So if you can set up a guideline, this guideline directs the students to achieve the plagiarism percentage or non-plagiarism percentages, the differentiation between how much actually can a person can go up to the similarity index. If you carefully look into this one, less than 20% is considered teacher should the similarity index, the acceptable and unacceptable scores in this slide, you can see teacher should not consider this as plagiarism. Why? Because the comparative score is less. That is the standard developed and documented in a guideline policy. And teacher considered this as play because this is the basis for differentiation. This is the basis of differentiation. Simply, we cannot say that you are plagiarized and the other one not plagiarized. How can you discriminate? There should be some measuring tool. What's the measuring tool? Measuring tool can be a plagiarism detection tool. And what is the measuring parameter? The measuring parameter could be a similarity score, irrespective of the language or the subject. So all disciplines, all languages should be applicable, all these guidelines, because plagiarism is not a specific to a specific discipline. Plagiarism is a broad area that occupies the whole globe, scientific and non-scientific, social, all fields of education, the higher education system and secondary education system, total almost all sorts of academic policies, academic settings will come under this. So we may need to develop a guideline that broadly classifies the plagiarized and non-plagiarized policy. So in order to do that, who are the key persons to take initiatives? Firstly, I would like to highlight about the role of institution. The role of institution. And stay tuned to my discussion, dear participants. Still, the story is applicable. Story is not attended completely. Story is just a trigger. Okay. To provide staff with the best anti-plagiarism tool, subscription may be needed in most of the cases. And to support, train academic staff with necessary competencies to effectively use plagiarism detection tools in course assessments. To provide policy guidelines, checklists for quality production of educational resources and activities. So these are the initiatives an academic institution should take part. Because these are the top management can only take decision on this kind of implementations. Rather, everyone has its own responsibility. Look at the role of an academician. So, effective induction to the students on academic integrity. The moment a student enters into the campus, students should be given complete introduction and induction on various academic policies and consequences, and what are the best ways to avoid the academic misconduct, what are the teaching and learning activities, what are the interactive engagements. About all information should be given to the student. That's the key responsibility of an academician, pertaining to a module, pertaining to a program, or pertaining to a whole semester. So effective use of web-based resources. So n number of resources, there is a huge demand of resources to day by day increasing, since the rate of increasing ICT applications also gradually increasing. The number of mobile users are gradually increasing. So mobile users, that's actually another story. If you want to talk about mobile technology, drastically accelerated the field of higher education. Most of the students actually interested in that, since they are actually accessing the course materials and doing assessments, as including submissions through the mobile platforms and apps. So it's all accelerating. So effective use of web-based resources should be explained, and design personalized learning plans is the very higher order strategy that can be implemented to any kind of academic setting. Will definitely enhance the academic integrity policy. So developing learning activities which requires higher order thinking, application based and critical thinking, problem solving nature. So such type of initiatives from an academician may be very, very useful to drastically put this kind of plagiarism practices under control. Definitely an academician can do that. Similarly, this academician may also think as a researcher. A researcher is a postgraduate student or maybe PhD student. So in that aspect, I kept the researcher in under the role as a student. So what is the role of a student? Oops, I plagiarized. So this is completely an unintentional plagiarism. So nothing wrong. So you don't worry. You can avoid it. Plagiarism can be avoided by following some best practices. So if you just look into the best practices, always acknowledge the contributions of others in your work, irrespective, not only it is applicable to just a general article or any newspaper, or no, not like that. If a person, when you are doing a lab work, a lab technician may assist you. Don't ignore. Please give some contribution and acknowledgement to him. So because he or she actually contributed when you are doing your research in that particular laboratory. So acknowledgement is very important, irrespective of whether it is a plagiarism, a research article or book or newspaper. Not, it applies to all sorts of activities associated with the research and development. So in the progression of your academic career, identify the citation source when paraphrasing or summarizing. So of course, the most drastic problem when I researched about this topic in the internet, when most of the times I could see, I come across with a lot of publications stating that student could not find enough time to complete their assignments. That's the main driving factor to have plagiarism in their reports, because they are too much stressful. They're worried about their ranks, and they're worried about their academic performance, and they're worried about the timelines and deadlines. So all these actually driving towards, and these factors are compensating with the ICT technologies and resources available in the internet. So these are all actually diverting and motivating the student to do plagiarism, whether irrespective of intentional or unintentional. Of course, it's a mix of intentional and unintentional. So provide a citation when in doubt about facts or common knowledge. Always enhance verbatism, just we mentioned about that, in quotation marks with an accompanying citation. Just now you had a case study on what on that. It's verbatism is actually the original text developed by the main author, and cite primary sources information, not secondary or tertiary. Meaning to say that if you consider taking an article, and in that article we'll be having some secondary references like 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you may consider taking 1, 2, 3, and 4, but you are ignoring the actual article which we are referring to. So it means that meaning to say that you are ignoring the primary reference. Rather, you are collecting the secondary references from the article which have already been cited by some other author. So these are considered as improper citation and referencing. So citation and referencing is actually a very big topic where we need to do a separate hands-on workshop on that. So let us see how you can manage to do that referencing and citations. You have a number of tools to do that. So you may need to have special training on specific software, because almost all softwares, the working process is almost same. Maybe the software application steps varies from one to one. So if you consider looking into the most freely used softwares and famous are Zotero and Mendeley. Zotero and Mendeley are most widely used by academic scholars, researchers, and scientists to place their citations and to give quotations to give the referencing and develop the bibliographic text. So all these things, Zotero and Mendeley are the two best softwares I can actually suggest, because when I do the literature survey on this, I could also see these two are actually occupying a lot of space by many of the users. And later on, coming to the resources, what actually leads to say that plagiarism happened. One can say that if you say plagiarism happened, the other one may say plagiarism is not happened. Where plagiarism happened? What's the evidence? So in order to create an evidence of plagiarism that has happened, so we need a plagiarism detection tool. There are several plagiarism detection tools, and not only that, these plagiarism detection tools are very much useful to prevent and avoid plagiarism on the beforehand, so that you know what's actually plagiarized in your content, so that you can modify and you can do all possible alterations. I'm meaning to say that not alteration in the plagiarism form. Alteration means the best practices of the anti-plagiarism. All kinds of anti-plagiarism efforts, you need to keep it into the document, and you can do all possible changes and check for recheck for the plagiarism percentage, and then you can identify the plagiarism percentage is not falling within the range of plagiarism. So you are successfully made that you can declare that your document is non-plagiarized. Are you happy? Yeah, of course you might be happy, but in recent scenario, this is the very big challenging. Still stay tuned to the trigger. Dear participants, don't get away from the trigger. Still stay tuned with the trigger. Why? The two friends were actually shared the complete information. All submitted the similar reports. One got successful in examination, the other one failed in examination. So this is the major problem, the plagiarism detection tools. So these are the plagiarism detection tools, top 10 free plagiarism detection tools. Here, I would like to introduce to you all one very good study that actually performed on evaluation of free anti-plagiarism software. What this evaluation says, this evaluation clearly depicted in this particular tabular form. You can see amount of content or percentage text similarity extracted, and the author, I would like to thank this author, Amalia. Such a wonderful work he or she made it. So what is the software and plagiarism? Software, you can see Plagiarism, Whipper, PlagTrack, and some software tools, the most widely used free software tools. And the expected amount of plagiarism detection should be 100, but the plagiarism detection is only 9%. Plagiarism detection in case of Viper is 7%. Plagiarism tracker can only able to identify 0%. Means no plagiarism. Actually, she did intentional plagiarism of the content, and 100% plagiarized document has been successfully submitted into this particular software. And looking for the possible, this is sort of cross-validation of the existing softwares of doing that. This is the best way of doing the validation criteria. So unfortunately, none of the softwares could successfully exhibit to show 100% plagiarized content. That's what the original thing has happened. Dear participants, just explore on this. The content which has already been 100% plagiarized, subjected for the anti-plagiarism detection software, but none of the software could detect that this document has already been plagiarized 100%. Meaning to say that validation of the plagiarism detection tools also matters. It's just not only simply doing the plagiarism screening using a software tool that's right now available in the internet. This is what happened in the story. The person who is actually belongs to institution 1, that institution using plague tracker, So although 100% plagiarized, that institution could not able to identify this document has already been plagiarized, because it's all about the software tool. It's not a physical means of doing the plagiarism, identifying by verbal physical means of reading or writing, or not like that. It will be subjected in a soft copy document to check against the database of the plagiarism software. So how much database of the content present in the World Wide Web your software is covering, that matters. Dear participants, hope you all explored on this. So how much coverage of the software actually enabling into the screening process to get the similarity score, that actually matters. So the institution 1 student don't have such facility. So certainly he could manage to pass all the examinations with very highest good grade, because what's the policy breaching over there? What's the academic integrity breaching over there? Because there is no anti-plagiarism policy or guideline. So the other one is having stringent rules and plagiarism guidelines and having commercially used anti-plagiarism software with very good database coverage, and could able to identify even very minor type of change or copy any sort of plagiarism attempt. So ultimately this particular student faced the consequence due to the plagiarism. So this is an unbiased system. This is not a fault from anyone. We cannot point out any particular person or specific domain at this point of time. This is actually a loophole in the ICT, a loophole in the overall system. So how to overcome this kind of loopholes? Maybe I can say, I don't know. Okay, moving on. How do we know which PDT is reliable? The other author, very good author, he somewhat advanced one. Actually, the same thing, the somewhat advanced one, the same thing. Which one can able to detect more percentage could be considered as the best tool? Somewhat logical. What do you say, dear participants? When compared to the private other forms, simply blindly following, why can't we do a pilot study using the same type of paragraph and submit to the different platforms available in the internet and try to get the similarity scores and look into the best score which you can get, and the best score will be the top similarity score. Okay, you may think that the best score is the least one. No, certainly not. Okay, the least one is not reliable, it's not validated. So the one with good number of coverage of domains and different scientific journals like Elsevier, Springer, Wiley, InterScience, Nature, and so it all depends on the coverage of the particular plagiarism detection tool. So dear participants, the plagiarism detection tool is also one of the most important thing what we have to consider. So top 3 commercial plagiarism detection tools, Turnitin, and this one will be the Write Check and Authenticate. These are the most topmost. Almost every academic institution may use this, may subscribe for this kind of softwares. Okay, We at International Medical University, we follow the Turnitin as our work. We have subscription access to both students, staff, research scholars, postgraduate, and all the across the disciplines and all programs in the university. So Ethnicate also, I could see most of the journals, editors, they are following Ethnicate as well, and Bright Check as well. Okay. Moving on, I would like to conclude with a summary of statements, with a summary of best practices for implementation. Standard setting of anti-plagiarism policy is one of the major initiative an academic institution should take forward, so that some of the best practices will be initiated by all domain students, staff, researchers, all people. And development of academic integrity plans is one of the strategic plans should be. In this academic integrity plans, what are the developments you may think of? You may think of conducting, organizing plagiarism awareness workshops, plagiarism induction short courses for students. The moment they enter into the should be the mandatory course. Upon completion of this course, only they are actually eligible to enter into the real classroom. So such kind of mandatory guidelines and rules may definitely keeps these best practices in a more realistic and effective manner. Yeah, training on plagiarism detection tools. And because training is also very important, as we subject experts, major subject experts may not be good in information technology and software tools, so they may need some additional training. So kindly provide training to the staff, so that the staff will aware of the new technologies available, and so that they can perform well, keeping to the current practices, and they contribute best of their practices to avoid plagiarism and to stop plagiarism. So what is the take home message of today's 1 hour webinar international conducted by CHIPS and in association with Indian Pharmaceutical Association and approval from International Medical University? So the take home message will be keep calm and stop plagiarizing. These are the acknowledgements. I would like to thank Professor Mahathir Julkifli, Dean School of Pharmacy, International Medical University, Malaysia, Prof. Ong Chin Ing, and Professor Mallikarjuna Rao Pichika, Associate Dean and Lee Choisin, Head of the Pharmaceutical Chemistry Department, and Professor T.V. Narayana, National President, Indian Pharmaceutical Association, and Professor S. Vidyadhara, State President, Indian Pharmaceutical Association, India, Professor Y. Rajendra Prasad, my mentor, my research director from Andhra University, College of Pharmaceutical Sciences. I'm very glad and proud to say that I'm his direct student, worked as CSIR Senior Research Fellowship. The CSIR CHIPS Management India Organizing Committee Chairman members and press and media. I would like to thank each and every person for your valuable time and contributions to make this event a very, very grand successful. And these are the relevant resources I have make use of to develop the presentation. And thank you for your attention, dear participants. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. I would like to call it indeed a very, very informative presentation that you have made. And basing on your presentations and basing on the points that you have highlighted, we have got a few questions from our participants, so that we would be like to sharing with you. So we would have a small questionnaire, and once the questionnaire is done, we can conclude the session. Is it okay for you, sir?
Yes, I am okay. Please go ahead. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. So as you can understand, we have a wide range of participants who are having basic knowledge in research to an advanced knowledge in research. So we would be having mixed kind of questions. So they may be very simple, they may be very difficult to understand. So please try to understand the questions.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
I will do my best.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And the first question that I would like to ask is, so you gave multiple examples of the different forms of plagiarism that you it can happen in the form of clone, cut, copy, paste, recycling, mashing up, hybrid, etc.
Yeah.
So in all those kinds of plagiarism, one thing that we identified in common is whatever the form it is, clone, mashup, recycle, hybrid, there the author failed to give a proper citation of the work from which where he gathered, right?
Yes.
So in such cases, whenever you are doing this cloning, recycling or mashup, if you can provide the proper citation of the author, that will not come under plagiarization. Is it true or false?
Just a very good question I received from the participant. I have to congratulate that participant because the participant definitely understood the whole process of the plagiarism very well to raise such a difficult question for me. Well, I have to appreciate that. So I would say this is actually false. Why? Why I should say false? Because the plagiarism forms are different. It's not only just the referencing or not just the citation. If it only confine it to referencing and citation, well and good. What's the right point is well and good, but it's also that is the reason why they have actually come up with different forms of types of plagiarism, and the scenarios are very broad. It's not actually a content narrow. What the closest to similarity and common similarity what you observed from the discussion is actually true, provided these only things cannot satisfy the plagiarism. So some other additional knowledge also needed to do well with anti-plagiarism. That's what is my explanation.
So you're saying that even though you give a proper citation to a somebody's work, the exact wording cannot be accepted while you are doing an anti-plagiarism check, right?
Yeah, of course, I can say that. Because is just giving reference, and this is one of the scenario what we discussed as well. Because just giving reference or citation may not serve the purpose actually. We may need to do some other things like paraphrasing, summarizing the content, and without making any deviation from the actual meaning. So all these are different practices actually. So referencing and citation is one of the practice among those. So referencing and citation will be add on to the practices which are also existing, can definitely give the best result.
Okay, sir. So we all know that there is a certain amount of percentage where plagiarism is accepted.
Okay.
Some say it's like 30% of.
Have you completed your question?
The first question is completed, so we are going to the second one.
Okay, please.
So we all know that, sir, a certain amount of plagiarism is accepted in any kind of research or any kind of articles that we do. So whatever we spoke in the previous question, can it come under this percentage where plagiarism is accepted?
As I mentioned, this is what the story actually depicts very clearly. At last, if you see the plagiarism policies, it all depends on the plagiarism policies, how they actually made by the institution or any publishing house. When it comes to plagiarism, the publishing house may consider up to 30% maybe acceptable plagiarism, acceptable similarity score. But in some cases, less than 15% plagiarized content only acceptable. In even academic transcripts, they may be considerably give relaxation up to 15 to 20. So it all depends on what is the policy actually says about that. It depends on academic individual policy. If you talk about the global perspective, if you ask me in the global perspective, all the standard journals, most of the times, they look for less than 15%. Although I received some comments from the chief editors that less than 10% even much better for plagiarism, because how much. And there is a myth I have to highlight at this point. There is a myth that continuous 2 words or continuous 3 words actually can able to identify. It all depends on the software settings. There is no such standard that it is all depends on software settings. If the software setting says that only one word can be plagiarized, whatever you do, paraphrase or whatever you do, summarize or whatever it may be, we will get 100% plagiarized. So in general, 3 consecutive words are not actually are actually considering as one of the standard indicator of identifying plagiarism in the submitted documents.
Okay, sir. And the next question would be, and the example that you gave, where 2 students were submitting their things, and one person is successful with the A plus, and other person is complete failure with F minus. There, you said that you mentioned a point that the differences between these 2 institutes is due to the lack of this plagiarism module that is developed by the respective institutions.
Yeah.
So what do you think are the effective ways an institute can develop a module so that no other person will face this scenario where a person gets absolute A plus and a person comes to a low F minus? Because positive sign for any researcher.
That's actually, may I know your good name, please?
Raghav Kalyan, sir.
Oh, Raghu Kalyan, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. It's very, very informative. It's very broad question actually you posed to me. And the question what you mentioned to me just now is completely dealing with the whole higher education systems and secondary education system. It all depends on, because this biasedness actually will affect the academic integrity at national level and international level. The global harmony of the academic integrity will be completely disrupted because of this discrimination. And because the grades what you are getting, the person the institution which providing the grades of highest order grades without having proper set of guidelines and policies that can prevent plagiarism, and the other one strictly following an ethical guideline and framework to keep the students with the very good honesty and all sorts of academic integrity, and they are producing a very good honest products. But unfortunately, if you look at the grades, their grades may be certainly less compared to the other institution, which is actually, this is where the discrimination policies actually need to be standardized. And unfortunately, I would say that this standardization is actually facing a lot of distractions. I can say that distractions, meaning to say, these are deviations from the actual policy. Some new things are upcoming day by day. How to organize all things? One size cannot fit all. So they are trying their level best to accommodate different types of things into single platform and trying to avoid as much as possible. National governments have already been taking necessary actions, and every individual nation having their own policy. Even University Grants Commission of India also have their own policy, and Malaysian higher education system have its own policy. Like that, we are actually following our national policies. But unfortunately, this happening at institution level sometimes may not be following the policies due to some constraints, and that actually breach the academic integrity. That's what I think. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. So these were the doubts from our side. Now I would be reading out some questions that were given to us on the online chat box.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't know the individual names of the people who wrote their questions in the chat box. So I just read it, the names that they've prescribed there.
Just keep it anonymous, no problem, because it will be a generalized question to all the target audience.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Then one question was with a name with Savadana. They were asking about the best tool to detect. I think sir already gave an answer for that. There was a slide which was made which says Scriber, Turnitin are the most valid tools to detect.
Yes, of course. If you consider, that's what I'm meaning to say, extensively discussed on that. When it comes to the performance of the tool, if you want to consider the best performance of the tool, of course, you may need to subscribe for the tool.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a bit costly because so many other expenses will come into the picture.
And there was also a question asked by Mohammed Muhrunisa, which says, what is the percentage of plagiarism that is acceptable? I think we had a discussion on that.
Yes, yes. Plagiarism in academic institutions, mostly across Malaysia, I could see that 15 to 20% could be acceptable.
Yes, sir. And there is another question from Swapna, which says that, are these plagiarism softwares, especially the free ones that are available in the internet, are they safe? Because majority of the people would like to keep their research as not something confidential like that. So they're asking this, are these softwares safe so that the research is not leaked?
Well, I want to say that definitely, if you something as a software professional, I did some basic software courses as well. A software professional, I can say that when the something, if you copy and paste into some other browser, definitely whatever the content you copy and pasted will be reposited into the document what you submitted into the portal, provided here the policies once again comes into the copyrights and legal issues of the software, where how long this will be retained in the portal, whether they of course they don't use generally for any like doing misconduct activities, or I don't generally think so, I don't comment on that, but make sure that you be careful utilizing most reliable software. Look at the ratings given, look at the feedback given by the users time to time. Nowadays technology is a lot, Mr. Raghav, it's very people are actually completely engaged with information technology. Rather they are actually learning on their own. It's a mostly self-driven learning, you know. So I just propose to say that look at the ratings, look at the history of the users. So what is the good comments, what is the experience given by the users which are already experienced before take any action.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So that's it, sir. These were the questions that were posted to us. These were the questions that we had for ourselves after looking into your presentation. And I agree that it was the most informative session that we had. And thank you so much for that informative session. And since this plagiarism is a very good topic for any educational institution, I think this broadened our views on it. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Raghava Kalyan, for vote of thanks. I would like to sign off with this Dr. Vasu here from International Medical University. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. And for all our participants, I would like to make a few announcements. The first announcement is that in case if you have any feedback to give to us, then we have a feedback form that is available in the YouTube link itself. You can highlight the link and then fill up your feedback form and then give to us. And second thing is about the certificates regarding this session. All the people who have registered to this session will definitely receive their certificates within a very short period of 5 to 7 days. I repeat, all the people who have registered for this webinar will definitely receive their e-certificates within a short period of 5 to 7 days. I would like to make this note also. We have successfully finished another webinar 2 days ago, that is on Friday, and all the e-certificates regarding that are also under process. This is what I want to make an announcement to all the participants. I repeat, the feedback forms are available in the YouTube. You can just click the link onto that and give us the feedback form, and all the e-certificates will be dispatched within a short period of 5 to 7 days. Thank you very much. And I would like to conclude this session with a very small vote of thanks. At the outset, I would like to thank all the management members of Chebrolu Hanumaiah Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences for giving us the freedom to carry out these webinars in this difficult period of lockdown. To highlight a few, I would like to thank Dr. R. Srinivas, President of Nagarjuna Education Society and Chebrolu Hanumaiah Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences, Dr. C. N. Srinivas, our beloved secretary, and also Mr. R. Gopal Krishna, the treasurer of Chebrolu Hanumaiah Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences. We wholeheartedly thank the Indian Pharmaceutical Association for constant support for organizing all such kind of activities during this lockdown period, who have been a backbone for all the activities that we do here. And next, I would like to thank all the working faculty of Chebrolu Hanumaiah Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences for being a constant support in all the activities that we do here. As to name out the organizing committee members, Dr. RLC Sasidhar, Dr. V. Venkatrao, Dr. Lakshman, Mr. Suryanarayana Raju, Mr. Chakravarti are all indeed working very good for organizing these. And I also thank all the participants who have been very active during the session, and we would look forward for many of these webinars to come in the lockdown period. Thank you so much.